Welcome to another episode of Your Schools. We're here at Poly Drive Elementary where we're meeting with the school counselor, Katie Tatum. We want to thank you so much for inviting us to stop by.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so we're actually meeting with one additional school counselor who will join us in a minute, but we are talking about the pandemic, big picture historically. How has this made an impact on our students in the schools and their mental health? I mean, there's been a lot that has gone over the past couple of years during the pandemic. That's what we're really talking about today. We'll get to that in a second. We want to know first, what is your background? What's your career path?
Great question. So I grew up here in Billings. I literally am a product of the Billings Public Schools.
Okay.
All through school, I pretty much knew I wanted to go into education. I had some great teachers that steered me in that direction. So that's what I did. I went into teaching. I left Montana for a while, taught a couple years down in California, realized that wasn't where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And so came back, went up to Wolf Point, spent some years out at St. Labray, and then into Billings. What I started noticing, though, throughout the years is kids, there was way more trauma than I thought that kids would have. And I felt like I didn't have the tools to help them. Like they were coming to school and math and reading was just, we couldn't even go there because we were dealing with what happened last night or what happened last week with their families or if they have enough food, this or that. So I went back to school to take some counseling classes just to get some tools for myself to help kids. And I fell in love. I just knew this is where I want to be. I don't want to be in the classroom anymore. I want to be in the counseling office. So
that's amazing.
That's what I did.
Yeah, and I know the students here love you. I have to say, my little first grader goes to school here at Poly Drive, and she's a fan.
I'm a big fan of her too, trust me.
Okay, so what is a typical day like in the life of a school counselor?
Okay, well, we have no typical days. Basically, I start off the day greeting kids as they're coming in the door, saying hi, giving hugs, that kind of thing. I check in on teachers too, make sure everybody's, doing okay.
Yeah.
I do have a school schedule with individual counseling lessons, group counseling lessons, and then classroom lessons. I do a lot of classroom lessons. But literally, if anything comes up, that just gets pushed aside. Yeah. So if a parent comes in or calls and there's a big something going on, I make myself available, hey, let's talk. The other big thing is the crisis team. A lot of us elementary school counselors are on the crisis team. So if there is a tragedy anywhere in the school district and we get a phone call, we drop everything and we go right to that school.
Yeah.
And we're there for as long as we need to be. So those kind of trump things.
Yeah.
Or if a teacher's having a hard time with a student, if, there's a meltdown or somebody needs a little extra coaching with some social skills, that's where I go. So on a good day, I get through all my lessons on my schedule. On a not so good day, just never know where I'm going to be.
No, but you're always there for the kids,
Always.
And that's the important thing.
And that is my number one goal as a school counselor. I'm there to keep kids safe, so wherever there's kids, that's where I'll be.
Yep. So what happened, looking back a few years when the pandemic started, what was that like as a school counselor? I mean, we had so many new things happening.
Holy smokes, we did. And it wasn't like we had time to prepare for it. It was wham, bam, school is shut down. And then kids were at home and we didn't know what was going on in those homes, things like that. We, that was hard. And then the next year, last year, most of our kids came back. Some kids stayed home or did distance learning, which rightfully so, that's where they should be. Yep. I see a big difference this year, well, more at the beginning of the year, with the kids that stayed home last year and did distance learning. When they came back to school this year, it was hard.
Yeah.
They were overwhelmed, classroom noise or being around a bunch of kids, learning to raise their hand again, eating lunch in the lunchroom. It was overwhelming, and I saw a lot of anxiety. You know,
Wow.
we are through that. Most of us are doing fine, you
That's
know?
good. That's good.
Yeah. Another thing that I saw that I didn't expect was kids that did distance learning last year coming back to school this year quickly realized that other kids were at school last year. And there was a lot that they missed out on. They didn't quite know where they fit in. They felt like that, kind of that lonely feeling, like, oh, that left out. And so we had some social issues there where we kind of had to revisit what it means to be a friend and to talk about things, you know, and just so that was new for me. I didn't expect that, but most have adjusted and we're doing fine.
Right. I mean, friends are so important at that elementary level, and just
Oh,
it
my
can
goodness.
change from day to day what their friend group is. And I'm sure, like you said, with the pandemic, that puts a lot of interesting twists to it.
It really did.
Yeah.
And, you know, as adults, we forget that kids don't always know how to make friends or how to keep friends. And so
Yeah.
that social skill of being a good friend is something we spend a lot of time working on.
Yes,
Yeah.
very important. What do you think are the impacts of the pandemic on the students as far as like wearing the masks or doing video parties for PTA and stuff like that? How has that actually affected them socially, emotionally?
That is a really good question too. I think that the kids were more than willing to wear the masks as long as they could be in school. Like, nobody wanted to shut down again. And so being at school means wearing a mask, and so they did it. You know, they might not like it, but they did it, and pretty soon it was just habit. I do know that it was hard, like not having birthday parties, not having the same birthday treats that we used to have at school, like the homemade cupcakes and things like that. We had to move to everything being prepackaged. So we still had treats, but it just wasn't the same. Like PTA meetings, you know, virtual. Yeah, it was isolating. It wasn't the same. And again, I think the kids so want things to go back to normal that they are willing to do whatever it takes, like to be at school with their friends.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. What have you seen now since the mask mandate is currently lifted, March 2022?
Well, first of all, kids looked a little different without their masks on. It took me a minute to realize who was who because, you know, you just saw, you know, but kids are kids. They're happy. They're, you know, I really haven't heard a lot of comments about it, but some kids still wear them, and we thought that's a good thing. We thought there would be kind of a divide of, well, this kid is wearing their mask, and this other kid who's not wearing their mask is going to tease or make fun. We had none of that. Like,
it's great.
They were very accepting and happy about it.
That's great news. Okay, great. Well, what is the relationship like for a counselor between the students and the parents and the teachers, really everyone involved? How does that work ideally?
All right. Well, again, my number one job as a counselor is to keep kids safe. And I want every kid at Poly Drive to feel like they are important, that, you know, they're seen, that Poly Drive is their school, and they belong here. And we miss them when they're gone, and this is their school. And so I try and build that trusting relationship with them. And, you know, we get them from the time they're like in kindergarten through 5th grade. And so throughout the years, that relationship, it grows and that trust gets bigger and bigger. And so I tell kids at the beginning of the school year, I'm kind of like your school mom. I'm the lady that's going to be there to listen and support you and might have some tough conversations with you sometimes because moms do that. But that's what I'm here for. I'm here to support you and keep you safe. You know, with teachers, gosh, it is so important that I have a good relationship with the teachers that I work with. And I work with some amazing teachers. Just wow. Because they're on the front lines. They're the ones that are really impacting kids. And so if there's anything going on that I can help them with, that's what I do. Like, I humbly just take my hat off to the teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
They
my
do
goodness.
a lot. You guys
They
all do a lot.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, you know.
Yeah.
And then the parents, gosh, I'm like their eyes and ears at school. I'm their resource. They bring us their kids every day. And I'm a parent. And I know it's hard to like let your little one go in and not knowing what's going on, you know, at first. And just the trust that I have with parents, knowing that we've got your kid's best interest at heart, and we're here for them. I hope that comes across.
Yes.
And, you know, I try to be approachable and listen.
Yeah.
Just listen.
Yeah. I think you guys are amazing. I know, like, it was hard, I'll say, during the
Oh, my
pandemic to
goodness.
drop off my kindergartner here at Poly Drive. I mean, it's an amazing school. Everyone here is awesome. But my first kid going to public school and dropping them off and just sending them in, not being able to go look at the classroom. I mean, the pandemic had a lot of changes. It was like, hey, go to school. Here's all your supplies in your backpack. Good luck.
And we don't even get to see where their desk is or their little cubby. No, it's a big deal.
But I will say the teachers and you, the counselors, everyone did an amazing job, like with those transitions and just the things that were different during the pandemic.
Oh gosh, that's really nice of you to say. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So if you had any messages for parents out there or community members, what would it be? How can they help?
Just support your schools. You know, we are in here literally doing the best we can. Again, with kids' best interest at heart. Your support, it just means everything to us. Your thank yous, your atta-girls or atta-boys, you know, just letting us know that, you know, you see us trying, you see us struggling, you see us doing the best that we can with what we've got. I know we don't always get it right, but give us a chance, you know, and yeah, we really, really, we're in this job, not for the money. We're here because we love those kiddos. And yeah, that's it.
That's wonderful. What impacts did you see here at Poly Drive specifically during the pandemic? I mean, I know there have, you know, some parents maybe lost their jobs during the pandemic and things. And I feel like that probably affected all of the city, not just certain areas. I know I have helped a little bit on the PTA here at Poly, and you know, we were helping to make sure that the pantry was stocked with snacks, because all the snacks changed and they had to be individually wrapped, and you know, sometimes kids would come to school with no snacks.
And that, again, that's part of the things that I do as a school counselor is, thank goodness the PTA, like they do, they stock our pantry, and so we've got snacks and things for breakfast, making sure kids have shoes. You know, we've got some people that in the community that help with that. They, you know, how many pairs of shoes do you need? What sizes? That's helpful. Providing Christmas, you know, gift bags for kiddos that might not have much. Again, our parents really step up and donate things at Christmas time, and we're able to put together these gift bags for kids. Since the pandemic, in the past, I've done this every year since I've been at Poly, and I've been here 9 years. This is the year that I think I put together like between 40 and 50 gift bags. That's twice as much as I've ever done, or twice as many as I've ever done. So
it really has, and the pandemic has been affecting everyone. Yeah.
Right.
It has. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know hats and mittens are always a big thing too. I know kids, even maybe they have them, but maybe they forgot them. And ultimately it's kind of up to the school to make sure that they have something warm when they're headed out to recess every day, because that doesn't stop.
Nope.
So I know probably donations there help too.
Yeah. And yes, we have some wonderful people who donate things. And that is another thing. Coats. I give out a lot of coats and hats and mittens and socks.
Right.
Believe it or not, socks.
Socks, yes.
So,
the basics, yeah.
yeah.
Okay. But it helps our kids. Like you're
It
helping
does.
them with focusing on that reading and math, which is not always top of their
Yeah.
minds. So
If their basic needs can be met, they can do the learning, and that's why they're here. They're here to be a learner.
yeah,
So,
for sure. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
are we good?
Yeah,
Okay.
if there's anything else that you'd like to add, yeah.
Just thank you for coming in and letting us talk. And, you know, a lot of people don't know what we do at school, so this kind of takes the mystery out of it a little bit,
right?
you know?
Yep. Well, I know you guys are doing so much with the kids, so
Yeah.
thank you to
Yeah.
all of our school counselors, all of the teachers out there, and really administration, everyone through the whole entire school district too has done so much to really pivot and navigate everything during the pandemic over the past few years.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Mrs.
Oh,
Tatum.
yeah.
And we're here now with Lindsay Horton, and she's the school counselor at Washington Elementary here in Billings. And first off, we want to know a little bit about you. What's your career path been like?
I started as a teacher right out of college. I taught third grade in San Antonio, Texas, and then outside of Denver, Colorado for about 4 years, and moved back home to Montana where I'm from, and then made the transition to counseling at that time. So I've been an elementary school counselor for 6 years now.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it's great to have you at Poly Drive, and thanks for chatting with us today.
Yeah.
So, what's the typical day in the life of a school counselor? What are some of the traditional issues that come up that you're addressing?
Well, I'd say there is no typical day for a school counselor. Every day is different. That's one of the things I love about it. We work with 3 domains: academic, social, emotional, behavioral, and then career readiness needs with our students. At the elementary level, it's very much social, emotional, behavioral, and we do things like teach lessons in all of our classrooms, K through 5, on sometimes a weekly or a bi-weekly basis, about things like conflict resolution or emotional regulation. We meet with students one-on-one and in small groups. Sometimes if there's a crisis or a behavior that's really impeding learning, we can come in and de-escalate that situation and get kids back on track. And we also do a lot of working with families and parents and teachers to just meet kids' needs in any way that they come up.
Okay, that's great. It's interesting too to hear that you're also working on career readiness in elementary school. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, just a little bit at the elementary level. High school counselors will be doing a lot of that, spend a lot of their time with that. But yeah, we hit all of those domains.
Right. Even just having folks from the community probably pop in and talk about what their careers are, that's got to be pretty interesting for the kids.
It is. They really enjoy that.
Okay, great. So what has changed since the pandemic for you as a school counselor, just looking at things big picture? I know, the pandemic's been going on for a few years. What are some of the things that have changed?
I think if you look at our younger students, even our second graders at this time, they've never had a full normal school year because they experienced the shutdown. The initial issues I saw were largely due to that kind of isolation and not having the social relationships that they were used to, and just the anxiety of these new issues in the world that were very scary for students. Since kids have been back, and in Billings, we've been really lucky to be open and full-time, but there have been some restrictions. So there have been probably more detriments to some of the things that we usually do in schools, like assemblies and field trips, that are slowly getting back to normal. I'd say the biggest thing that I see is just a really, really strong increase in the mental health needs of our students. And that has really continued even as COVID has calmed down a little bit, even through the peaks and valleys, that we're just experiencing more mental health needs.
What are some of the situations that come up for kids, regarding that and their mental health needs and as they're related to the pandemic?
Right. Well, I think anything that affects the community or affects parents or affects families affects students. So all the issues that we're seeing in our community with like crime or substance abuse or housing or financial constraints. There are kids attached to all of those things. So that just really increases the day-to-day stress that kids are experiencing. And we see a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of just a less ability to cope with day-to-day stressors when their life stressors can be so big at times.
Right. Are there any differences that you have noticed, like from school to school, even in the Billings community? I know you work at Washington Elementary, and we're here at Poly Drive today. What are some of the different things that maybe you guys have seen just as a counseling community of counselors in the school district?
Our schools in Billings are all very different and have different needs. I think that's one of the greatest things about counseling is we can really be very adaptive to our school and what our needs are. It kind of just depends on that area of the community. In my part of town, there isn't as much home ownership, so there's a little bit more turnover in the school than maybe some other schools experience, and just different issues with poverty in different parts of towns and things like that can kind of show up in some of the issues that we see.
So how does that present in the students at school? Like, give us an example of a student who's come in during the pandemic, and what was like an issue that they were facing?
Well, I think housing has been a big issue that I've seen an increase with. I've seen more just adults struggling with the pandemic and with just life in general, with things like substance abuse, and that definitely impacts kids too when it impacts their families. Housing in Billings has been a really big challenge for a lot of our families. Even if they have Section 8 vouchers, a lot of times there aren't places to rent. So they're sitting on wait lists, sometimes in motels and things like that. And trying to get them to focus on math when that kind of thing is going on in their life is just really a big struggle for us.
Wow. Yeah, I could see that. So what do you do when the students come to you and they're struggling? How are you helping them?
Well, we really work to make as much as possible school be this safe, consistent place where they have positive adult relationships, positive relationships with peers, where they get all their basic needs met. We make sure that they have food. We make sure that they feel safe here at school. We make sure that if their family is struggling with something like utilities or something at home, that we can get them resources in the community and at least get them on the right track there. So that's something that I think counselors do, is just make sure that basic needs are met. We give them a safe place to express their feelings, and then to the best of our ability, we try to teach healthy coping strategies and emotional regulation to all of our students, not just the ones that maybe struggle more.
Right. Has there been anything new since the pandemic started, just historically, that you as a counselor or just in your past as a teacher just stopped and said, like, wow, I can't believe how different this is, how these are the issues that students are coming to school with?
Yeah. I think when students were trying to do school at home, some of them were really successful. Some of them really struggled with that, with not having the social aspect of school or that face-to-face connection. So some of those students coming back have really large academic gaps and also social gaps that we're really working to fill. And I think we will fill them. But that's just been like something that's really new for me. In Montana, we barely even have snow days off of school, and then having that, extended time where we were doing school at home leaves a pretty big mark.
Right, for sure. What about students and wearing the masks? What were some of the things that came up regarding that? Because we're taping this in March of 2022, and that's a new thing where the mandate has been lifted for the masks, and the students can see each other's faces and their smiles. But what has that been like? What have you noticed as far as impacts? What are the students saying now that they can see each other?
I think they did like that they could see each other. They got used to masks really quickly. I think if you give a kid a mask with their favorite character on it or something like that would really help. And some of the kids that were the best at keeping their masks on were like our kindergarten students. So it was really interesting to me that they didn't make it as big of a deal as I think I anticipated, or I think as a lot of people thought. They were really glad to be back in school.
Right.
And if masks were a way that we could do that, I think they saw it that way. Younger students are not always like super responsible with carrying this extra thing, so they would take it off at recess, and there were a lot of them that would get lost and things like that. So logistically it was a challenge, and getting them to fit and all of that kind of thing, but they were, I think, excited to take them off, some of them, and some of them still wear them, and that's okay too, and feel comfortable there. But I think they were just so glad after our initial closure in 2020 to finally be back together, and excited to see their friends and their teachers, that masks were just a very small part of that.
Right. What about some of the parties? I know I saw my kindergartner last year doing Zoom PTA parties, Halloween parties, and things like that were just very different from that social aspect. Like, how do you think the students dealt with that, like playing with their friends over a video screen?
I think even as for adults, going to a meeting over a video screen is not always the same. I think sometimes sitting in your bed and trying to do school is not the same. It's just not the right environment. And I think it was fun to see each other's faces, and they really did the best that they could with it. But there's nothing like, being in the same room with your friends and playing Legos and that kind of thing. And it's nice to be together. I think humans need that, especially kids. So
Right.
that separation was hard for students, although they seem to enjoy, all the fun stuff we tried to do, even online on screens.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, very good. What is the relationship like between a counselor, the student, and the parents? How important is it that everyone can be involved when possible, and does that actually happen?
Well, the relationship with parents is very, very important. One nice thing about counseling is we often get students from kindergartners through 5th grade. So we don't just have that one-year relationship that a teacher does. We don't have them as much during the day as that teacher, but we really have that unique opportunity to form relationships with families that can last a very long time. And that is just a really good investment for if something happens in that child's life, that we already know the families and we have this trusting relationship. The more parents can be involved, the more we can help their kids be successful. And that's not always possible for everybody, but we try to really encourage that in our schools and with the teachers and our administration too.
All right, if there was one thing that you could tell, if you had a message for parents out there in the community, what would it be?
I think we really need your support. It's so vital. We appreciate your support, but it helps kids be successful. Your communication is so important. Every thank you I think that a teacher or a staff member gets goes a really long way to just kind of invigorate our energy, because we're humans too. And the pandemic has been stressful on staff, I think, as well as students and families.
Right.
We really value your support. We need your support. Schools can't do it alone, I think, is what I would say.
Right. And would you say the same goes for community members, even if they don't have kids in school right now?
Yeah, our community partners are so great and so gracious with their time and helpful, and students love that. They love it when people in the community and business partners come in, and that is really vital also.
All right. Well, Lindsay, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I think that's great. Thank you.
Okay, well, wonderful information. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time on another episode of Your Schools.